Every single person we talked to along the way, in pre-production, through production, through the end of it, had their spin on how they would fix the thing and make it different. And that's what's great. And when they direct their movie, then they can do their version of it.
Hello? 111, where is your emergency?
Exit 275 on 40. These guys just shot a police officer right on the exit.
I need to ask you a few questions. Maybe you can help me get to the bottom of what happened. Can you do that for me? You two were on some kind of road trip?
My dad travels for work.
There is no money. It's all just numbers on a ledger. And when it all comes collapsing down, who do you think they expect to come around and clean up the mess?
What about school?
I'm homeschooled. He says that he wants me to be an independent thinker.
Power's in the people. Always remember that.
We found some weapons in the van you were driving. Your father has, he ever been violent?
Next time, aim more for the head. You know, they wear bulletproof vests.
It sounds to me like your dad doesn't like the government very much.
They demand that you beg. They're sick like that. You know, they're psychotic, psychopaths.
I mean, I don't want to have to kill anybody. But if they keep messing with me, then I'm afraid that's what it's going to come down to. And if I have to kill one, then I'm not going to be able to stop. I just know it.
They think they can just, you know, keep squeezing blood out of a stone. But at some point, you have to let them know that you won't be pushed any further.
This is an illegal stop.
Sir, get back in the car.
What law did I break?
Get back in the
Tell me
car
what
right
law
now.
I broke and I'll comply. Sir?
They're sick in the head, that's all. So we just gotta play their silly-ass little games. And go in there and kill the monster under the bed, so to speak.
Good day, Christian Swegal, debut feature film Sovereign. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Great to speak with you.
I am so thrilled you're here. Sovereign is a masterpiece of filmmaking. I think it's available for streaming on July 11th, correct?
That's right. Yeah, it'll be available tomorrow.
Yeah.
Friday, July 11th.
Wow. It's just, I can't wait to talk with you about it. It's just so well written, so well acted. The shots are amazing. And I did Google the story before watching. Is that something you want people to do before they sit down to watch it? Are you agnostic to it? Does it matter to you?
Yeah, no, I don't think it matters. It's one of those things that I know people are going to be curious and want to take a look at the real story. We try to stay as close to the real story as possible with the main storyline of the Canes. Everything outside of that, though, has been fictionalized, which is why it's inspired by a true story, not based on in a docudrama sort of a way. But no, I think if people engage with the movie to the degree that they're interested to go and Google the real events, I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So before we begin talking about the film, can you tell people what they should expect to see when they watch Sovereign?
I think they should expect to see I know some of the marketing has it positioned as a thriller. It has thriller elements. It's definitely a slow burn, though. It's a drama. It's primarily a story about, fathers and sons. And it's a character study of this man and his relationship with his son. I hope people go in with an open mind. There's a lot of thought and symbolism and meaning imprinted into the film, but it's not overt. And it's not a movie that overtly gives you answers at the end of it. I think that's a new viewing experience for some people. Those are always my favorite films that sort of treat the audience as a participant in the conversation, really. And so if people like movies that leave you with something to think about and something to mull over, certainly our kind of the filmmaker thesis is embedded in there, but we don't lead with that. It's not a movie that we're trying to jam a message. So yeah, that would be it.
And it's your debut feature. Would it be fair to say, just from your answer there, that it's a film that you wanted to see? If you weren't the filmmaker, you'd want to see this film?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the treat of getting to do. It's been a long time coming to get to finally make a film. We made this movie independently. So the filmmakers, me, my team, the producing team, we got to make the movie we really wanted to make, and without interference. And I think with a movie this size, we have an incredible cast, but it's still a small independent film. And I think with a movie that size, we wanted to make the movie we wanted to make and stick to our guns and not try to water it down or please everyone. And I think the movie will be for some people and not for other people, and that's fine. It's better to be polarizing in that way, I think, for a movie our size than it is to try to please every audience.
100%. And how are you able to come up with such a outstanding debut feature? Was it just one of those stories where it's 20-year instant success? Or was it just working up to that point? It's just so accomplished in so many ways. And it's what is debut feature? How did you make those steps to be able to create such a great film?
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, for this film, it's definitely been a long time coming. I worked for many years in different crew positions. I worked as an editor, worked as a screenwriter, and I had not really solo screenwritten a lot of things, but I had been a writer on projects that had been produced. And really, I think it was just a process of trying to get the courage and really try to find my voice in a way and feel confident enough in my voice and find a story that I really felt strongly enough to want to make. And with this film, I had someone very close to me, a family member who had suffered from mental illness. And as part of that, became really engrossed in this kind of conspiratorial anti-government ideology, very like sovereign citizen adjacent. And so I had heard this stuff for years. And a lot of the lingo that sounds like legalese, mumbo jumbo, that was really familiar to me. I had witnessed it for a long time, and I knew that. And so as part of trying to understand that, I researched the sovereign citizen movement and then came across this crime and the father-son storyline in that. And just the idea of a young kid trying to have a normal life, but having a parent with these extreme ideas. And certainly there's a bit of mental illness at play with the Jerry Kane character. And in my research of that, I think that was also accurate. It just felt like a story that really was uniquely positioned to tell and to say something about and to write. And I knew that this was the story that I wanted to take on as a first film to direct.
Wow. That's incredible, Christian. So when you're writing a story with an analog to a true life story, what do you think you owe the characters that actually existed? Because their families are going to watch this. What do you owe the viewers for that kind of thing? How did you weigh what to dramatize, what to keep as accurate to both make sure that it's entertaining and also at least respectful to the people that actually live the life?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that I think was my biggest concern and consideration in wanting to tell this story. There's a fine line you're walking because on one hand, I think it's important for filmmakers or journalists or writers to be able to talk about the world we're living in. This was a real event. It's something that actually happened. It affected the families, but it also speaks to something larger, I think, that is going on in the country and even in the last 15 years since the crime happened. I don't want to shy away from telling a story that I think is powerful and relevant, but also you do have to be very sensitive to the families. And I spoke to some police officers early on who were involved in the shootout, and it seemed, and I hope this was the right choice, but it's the direction we took, that the best way to move forward with it was to keep the Kane storyline intact and very accurate. And we tried to tell that as accurately as possible. And it's very researched. They're both passed away and everything about that crime was public record. But with the victims of the families, we changed all of the names, changed the storylines, and really even made a decision not to overly fictionalized or even dramatized that storyline. There's more just a presence, but we're not trying to dig into their personal lives too much. So I think in this case, we felt that the best way to handle that would be to protect their privacy and not intrude to a degree any more than it felt necessary to tell the story and to speak to a larger truth that we're trying to deliver with the film.
And I think it's fair to call it a filmmaker's thriller because there's so many different little motifs in there threads that you start in the beginning that pay off near the end. And that just shows the greatness of the writing in this. And I want to talk about one in particular, the baby. How did you settle on that as using underlying theme? Was it in your original script? And can you talk a little bit about that particular aspect of the film and explain how you use that as an effective device?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's the way that we relate. I'm a father. I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and the sleep training thing, as I was writing it, was very much like a part of our daily lives with our 4-year-old.
Right.
And I think the way that the characters relate to the way that Job relates to his dog, or how you relate to a baby, it shows how you relate to something that's innocent and pure. And really, it's a stand-in for empathy. It's the crying baby analogy, not to be too boiled down about it, though, is how do you deal with problematic situations? How do you deal with people that are crying out? How do you deal with whether in a lot of ways, I think the dispossessed people that Jerry Kane speaks to are crying out in their own way. And do you deal with that through authority, or do you deal with it empathetically? And so it's a little bit of a heavy-handed metaphor, but it is the central metaphor of the film and the message that we're trying to get across.
I don't think it was heavy-handed. I think it's just a masterclass in filmmaking. And I think you're lucky enough to get a masterclass actor. I think all the reviews have mentioned Nick Offerman's character in this, and it's just phenomenal. Did you go in knowing that he would be the one to play that role? And what's the benefit for you as a director to have an actor that so perfectly embodies the character that I imagine you wrote?
Nick has been one of my favorite actors forever, and he's such a brilliant artist and just a great person and a great human being. He was such a great leader on set. I think there's so much in filmmaking that you can't control, but there's so much luck involved in these things. It's really spooky sometimes how these things come together and create this sort of alchemy. And getting the cast that we got was just like a gift. Every single person in this cast. But Nick's performance, I think, he's done some amazing things, but I think this is a real showcase and a real standout performance for him. And I'm really excited that people are recognizing it and seeing it for that.
I know casting has become a huge thing in independent film. Oh, you need to have a name as part of it. Do you think one of the things that the advice you'd give an indie filmmaker is just writing? I know this is going to come off as this, okay, yeah, write an incredible script is easier for me to say than do. But do you think that, do you think that's the bottom line here is maybe don't get caught up on finding names, make sure you have the goods before going out there and trying to find a name?
I think so. I think that as a first-time director, the cast took an incredible risk working with me because I don't have a track record. Nick really had a tremendous amount of courage to sign up for this project because on one hand, yeah, it's a great role. There's great scenes. There's a lot of drama, but he had no idea how that was going to get put together. And when they show up, they really have to submit to, I'm now in this film, and sort of once the ship leaves the harbor, you're on the ride. You can't get off. And it takes a lot of guts to do that. But I think that he responded to the material. I think that our conversations, he saw the perspective that we were trying to put forward with the film. And it's also just not me. I think I teamed with an incredible producer, Nick Mosseri, who's the sole producer on this film. And he had a track record that spoke to him having great taste. And I think that surrounding yourself with people that do have a track record and also having a great piece of material is going to be the thing that gives actors the confidence to be able to really sign on.
That's such an incredible story, Christian. So it was at least partially funded through Slated, which is a company that I love. It doesn't sound like you have to go through the normal process of crowdfunding of Lasting Friends with social media, but it might have a little bit of that to it. Can you talk a little bit about the process that you went through to get the film funded?
Yeah, it was a combination of investors, independent investors for not very large money amounts. Some of that came through Slated. Some of that came through relationships that my producer had. Some of that came through my relationships. People that just, it's like you're starting a small business.
Right.
And it's friends and family that believe in you. And Slated was a great place for us to try to broaden that network outside of friends and family and say, hey, does anybody else believe in this? And so that network was really helpful as well. So it was financed through that, and then a portion through our tax rebate from the state of Arkansas,
Nice.
and then also pre-sales. So we had, really the main pre-sale was our distributor, Briarcliff Entertainment in the US, pre-bought the movie based off of the script and the talent package. And then also we had some great foreign distributors that signed on. And so a combination of all of those things is what got us our budget.
That's incredible. And it premiered at Tribeca and available for streaming on July 11th, same year. I can think of dozens of films that showed at Tribeca this year, last year, past few years that are still waiting for any form of distribution. What can
Yeah.
you say led you to this? Is it the acknowledgement that I know you're too humble to say this, but the acknowledgement that it's just a great film and that helped it? Is it the distributor was, all right, we need to get this to audiences because it's a fantastic film, or another reason?
I hope so. I think that's certainly part of it. I think that if it weren't a good film, then I think we'd probably be getting a different reaction. Though there are some incredible movies that don't have distribution. Actually, at Tribeca, I've been in touch with a few people, other directors there with big casts, and they're struggling to find distribution. We had the benefit of our distribution was pre-sold, and it was pre-sold 2 years ago. So I'm not sure if the market has changed in 2 years. I'm not sure because by the time then the movie was finished, it's when somebody buys a home off of the plan and then you go build the home.
Right.
It's a little bit like that. So we had distribution going into production. And I think the prospects for just purely independently financing a movie and then finding distribution afterwards at a high dollar amount are, I don't know that side of the business, but I have seen friends and other filmmakers and colleagues with great films. And I think that the market forces of that are a little bit weird right now.
And would you recommend doing that again? It takes a lot of the stress off you of going to Tribeca, going to your premiere and being, oh, I need to sell this. Whereas you went in confident of the plan already. And it was just, okay, here's this great introducing the film to people rather than feeling this burden of having to sell it.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm sure my producer would have really strong feelings about that. From my seat in the car, I was just so focused on trying to deliver a movie that worked. And I also just felt so lucky to get to shoot the movie. Even if the movie just lived on my laptop and I had some screenings at my house, I was just thrilled for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the distribution piece is huge, and the business is going through major changes that you read about every day. And I'm not really aware of all the nuance of that. But certainly having a distributor upfront for us was a real benefit and let us know that we were going to that the world was going to get to see the film.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of an unfair question because it goes out tomorrow. So maybe I'll check back with you in a year or so and find out what your thoughts are on this whole process. Yeah. But what I think I can check in on you on is, this is your first feature. What kind of advice would you give somebody now that you're on the other end of it, like being able to direct such a great cast, complete such a great movie? What kind of advice would you give somebody just going into that process right now?
I would say that getting to execute your vision is about your collaborators, and it's also about control. There's a lot in filmmaking that is out of your control. And it's about trying to control those things as much as you can, I feel. You can have one story, there's a kind of a climactic action scene at the end of the movie. Well, we had 2.5, almost 3 days set up to shoot that. But as we got into our last week and we were about to film it, there was a thunderstorm in Arkansas and lightning strikes, and it shut down our set. And we now had to shoot that entire sequence in a day, which was really fast and really difficult. And so you can have a plan and then something happens like this. There's so many moving pieces that your plan goes out the window. You have to just react. And my advice would just be, no matter what the scale of movie, you're still battling those forces. It's about your collaborators and then how much control you can have. And so I think in some ways, a smaller movie, you can have more control. I've had friends that have done micro budget movies for $100,000 and they have a lot of control because they've scaled the thing to be that way. And then you can get great actors. And really at the end of the day, it's just a camera and your performers and your script. And so my advice to filmmakers that I wish I had earlier was just don't wait to focus on your material and on the story and then just go. And I think even though this movie turned into something bigger, that was our ethos from the very beginning of this process. I knew when I had the script and I had a producer that believed the same, that we were going to shoot this movie at whatever scale we could shoot it for. And that was it. We were shooting next year, and if it was puppets in a garage on an iPhone, that's what the movie was going to be. And I think that level of commitment to just going gave other people the confidence to then join. And I don't think that should be your point, though. I think you should mean it. I think you should just go. And I have a lot of other filmmakers and colleagues that have done incredible films, first films for no, and you can look at a lot of the most successful filmmakers today have done that. So that would be my advice.
When I'm hearing your answer, I can't help but think of an old Army saying I remember, when in charge, be in charge. And I feel like as a first-time filmmaker, there might have been hesitation. If you had handled it differently, of look at this cast, look at this thing, maybe I'll be timid, maybe I won't fully embrace the vision that I want for the film. But I can't help but think it turned out fantastic, because when in charge, be in charge, you went in there and I'm directing this film. I'm making sure that I have the vision. Was there some element of that? You stayed confident in your vision throughout and you didn't let this whole thing about it being your first feature, et cetera, overwhelm you?
I think so, but that took me a long time. I'm 42 years old. I've been at this for a while. I'm not in my 20s making my first film. I didn't have that confidence in my 20s.
Right, yeah.
It took me a long time to have that confidence, but I think I learned that confidence also. Just movies are subjective. This isn't math where there's a right answer and a wrong answer. It's art. It's completely subjective. And if you go to somebody with your script and say, I think this script needs a little work, they're going to give you notes. You're going to be developing it. Every single person we talk to along the way, in pre-production, through production, through the end of it, had their spin on how they would fix the thing and make it different. And that's what's great. And when they direct their movie, then they can do their version of it.
I love that.
And you have to, I think, own that. You have to just understand this is about perspective. It's not about right or wrong. And you hope that perspective connects, but who knows? Things are so weird. You have no idea if it's going to connect. It's shocking to me even that it connects with one person, but it does. So you make the movie for yourself. And then there's a phrase that somebody said this to me: the more specific you make something, the more universal, or the more personal, the more universal. And I do think that's true. I think if you can be personal and vulnerable, then people can feel that in the work.
I really hope so many people take away that quote there. When you direct your first feature, you can do it. That is such a perfect line. And it's true, right? It's good to get input, but ultimately there should be one decision maker on how the film, and there's one person associated with the overall direction of the film, and that's you. And so it should be the vision that you have. And unfortunately, too many times I think it gets watered down.
I think that's true. I think that there's a lot that gets watered down, and there's a lot that contractually and legally is just completely out of your hands in all parts of the process. And so making an independent film is great because you don't have to. I've had friends that have done movies that they get recut. The cut gets taken from them, and that would just be the worst experience. And then there's marketing and there's other things that you don't have any control over. So you have to, your collaborators are very important. And so it's collaborators, the things you can't control. And for those things, you pick the right collaborators. And then the things you can control, you try to control as much as possible, I think is how I approach it.
Love that, Christian. So you're in the heart of the press for it. Comes out July 11th. Are there any other projects that you are able to talk about that you're working on now that Sovereign is out?
Yeah, I can't give the story pitches for them, but I can generally talk about them. I have one that's an ensemble. And I'm drawn to true stories, and if they're not true stories, then they're at least rooted in some sort of specific time and a place. I have a movie that I'm working on now that's an ensemble true story biopic adjacent kind of a thing. And then I have another that I'm working on that's another true crime story, and one more that's a bit more of a crime drama heist movie with a little more energy. So I like to work on a couple things at once and then see which one turns out well. If it doesn't, then it's back to the drawing board. So we'll see.
I cannot wait to watch them if they are even half as good as Sovereign. Indie Film
Thank
Podcast.
you.
Love hyping other people's projects. It's clear to me that from talking with you, the ensemble, working with others is extraordinarily important to you. Is there an indie film or filmmaker that you wish more people knew about?
Boy, that's a great question. There's so many. There's filmmakers. It's also level of how deep of a cut do you want to go. There's definitely, I have favorite filmmakers on the festival circuit. There's friends of mine that are filmmakers that I love. I really like this filmmaker, Michel Franco. He's done a few dramas and he's very well known in the festival circuit. Maybe not to general moviegoers as much, but he did a movie called Chronic with Tim Roth and another film with Tim Roth called Sundown, and then he did a film with Jessica Chastain called Memory with her and Peter Sarsgaard that I thought was brilliant. And there's something about the simplicity of, there's this sort of, I don't know, it's easy for films can get more and more complex as the technology gets easier and visual effects, and you can add complexity easier now. And there's something really beautiful about the simplicity and sort of the distilling approach that he takes to movies that I really respond to, and the ambiguity. I really respond to movies that don't try to preach. And so I think his movies can be frustratingly like morally or thematically ambiguous at times, but I like that. So that's something that I took from his work a little bit. But he's probably my age. I think he's close to my age. He's a contemporary.
It's a perfect answer. And I think you would take it as a compliment that Sovereign does that as well. It leaves you thinking about a whole range of issues. Christian Swegal, the film is Sovereign. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. This has been fantastic. I really love the film, and I'm excited to see what's next from you.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you.